I'm your host, John Tobacco. I've been walking these streets through the caverns of Wall Street, pounding the pavement for 25 years. This is Federal Hall. The capital of capitalism is right behind me. This is where the politics meets the economy, and we're gonna bring it all to you here on What's the Deal. We're bringing you real experts with real understanding, not talking heads, not guys who manage their mommy and daddy's money. We'll be the only show on television that every week has one whole segment based on cryptocurrency.
And you're watching What's the Deal?
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
You're watching What's the Deal on Newsmax TV, and so am I.
You're watching What's the Deal? What's the deal?
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
Tell me, what's the deal?
What's the deal?
What's the deal? The show that does not kneel. Free donuts for everyone.
Great.
What's the deal? What was Jackie Gleason's opening line on his show? What did he used to say? How sweet it is. You're tuned in to What's the Deal on Newsmax TV. I'm your host, John Tobacco. We are going to bring you an enormous amount of information, and every week to follow, we'll do the same, providing you alternative programming to the NFL.
I learned a great deal about what crypto is and blockchain specifically. I'm still a bit skeptical, though. A lot of people that are very well respected, Nouriel Roubini, for instance, they've called cryptocurrency the biggest bubble in history. 5 years ago, he and others were saying that it's BS and only attracts suckers. So what can you say to reassure people that see respected economists who predicted things like the global financial crisis saying, hey, stay away from this. This is either a scam or something that appeals to suckers?
I think the first thing to note is cryptocurrency is a use case of the blockchain. The technology is real, and it is actually going to solve problems. And so whether or not a particular cryptocurrency has the wrong actors in it or bad intentions or motives doesn't mean the entire technology is bad. So it's important that if you're interested in this space, you get really smart in this space and you figure out who's behind each project.
One thing that I think fundamentally people need to understand is cryptocurrencies and blockchain are two separate things. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Stellar, hundreds of other cryptocurrencies are all use cases for the underlying technology, blockchain. We're going to tell it like it is, like many of the other news channels out there don't do. Where do you come down on some of this stuff? Are you just a straight down the line Democrat?
No, I don't think anybody is. And I think, people need to decide whether they want to be an eagle and soar alone with their own convictions, their own beliefs, or if they want to be a pigeon. And every political party grabs a hold of these pigeons to say, come into our flock and we'll take care of you. Well, that's the wrong way to live today. I don't need a group, I don't need an elected official telling me how to think about a certain matter.
Got it.
Unfortunately in America, the system is set up so people are 2 paychecks away from bankruptcy. So either you have the time or the money. And somebody with both time and money is a very dangerous person to the establishment.
Like Donald Trump.
Well, he really mucked it up now, didn't he?
Stepping into the token tank, wading in carefully, it's Lauren Weiniger. Lauren, you're here to tell us about your company, Safe.
Absolutely.
And what you're doing to change the world. So give it a whirl.
So Safe is a blockchain-enabled healthcare company focused initially on the very underserved market of sexual health. Technology and dating apps and social networks have really changed the way we meet, date, and mate. And the unfortunate consequence of automating the dating process is STD rates have reached a new all-time high in the U.S. for the 4th year in a row. The CDC is reporting a public health crisis, and it's disproportionately affecting young people. In fact, 1 in 4 college students today will graduate with a chronic, incurable STD.
My one question. How much are you raising?
So we've raised $2 million. We're raising the last 1.5 now.
Okay, and is a security token or a utility token?
Utility. It's a private Hyperledger blockchain. Your STDs are not on the blockchain. That information is private. Your results are only shown on your own.
You said your STDs. That's making an assumption that
sexual health
to sign up so that
Your sexual health
Unbelievable.
status is private.
This is amazing. I'm not investing in this company now. I'll tell you that.
No, it's about your own status.
I know.
It's about being
kidding.
accountable, whatever
I think
it
it's
is.
fantastic.
Yeah, so actually, just to clarify, the capital you're raising right now is for equity in your company, correct?
Correct.
The token will be a utility token distributed to those who are using it.
Correct. So this is a future case. Right now, the app is live. It works. You can download it today.
Hi, esteemed panel. So yeah, I started Essentialize to get the youth involved in blockchain technology. So how I got involved, I've never invested. I've been in advertising, never even stepped foot in the finance world. But I heard about Bitcoin and I was like, okay, let's give this a try. So I went to a women's meetup group in New York City and I paid $40 for a ticket, and you know, it was a lot for like a meetup. I was like, I could get dinner with this. And so I got there and I didn't understand a word they were saying. They were talking about this coin that they invested in, and I was like, this sounds great. How do you buy Bitcoin? And I was asking the most basic questions because that's what I was there to learn. But I really got into blockchain technology and what it can do and what doors it opens up. And I think that a lot of the youth would love to get involved. There's so many things they can do. They can create content. They can think of ways to decentralize the economy and equal power. And there's so many ways that they can get involved if they were just introduced to it. So I really want to bridge that gap with Essentialize and get speakers in high schools and fund their projects and really make content that's directed to them.
So Essentialize
Yes.
is essentially a foundation
Yes.
that wants to raise money to create awareness, education, and empowerment to young people to get them involved in technologies and blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So if you're a business or anybody who needs data services that are cheaper and
Computation,
more
yeah.
safer and faster,
And
you would think
redundant.
about ServerCube.
Yes, low latency, redundant, high compute.
Sunil,
Yeah.
did you ever consider hiring her? Because she's pretty good at breaking down what your company does.
I know she's a genius,
She
actually.
is a genius, right?
It's just too expensive for me right now.
Is she, or does she just play one on TV? That's the real question. You know, I'm intrigued by her sometimes too. But does she just play a genius on TV?
I told her we'd come back after a fundraise and then see what
There
happens.
we go. So let's help these guys get some money.
Fair enough.
And you made the allusion to the internet earlier, Dan, and I think that's so apropos. And it really is almost like the Wild West in a good way, where you have all these pioneers trying to go out there and build something from nothing. So as someone that doesn't know anything about blockchain or cryptocurrency, I'm eager to see, based on the enthusiasm of the three presenters we had today, where this whole sector goes.
I think it's a real land. It's something that a lot of people can utilize and benefit from, the blockchain, and that was evidence today.
We're making dreams come true on What's the Deal. I hope today you got some information, you understand a little better what's the deal with cryptocurrency, what's the deal with blockchain. It's only week 1. We're taping a TV show. They want to get a shot of me like buying a hot dog from you guys.
How much will be
How much is a hot dog?
not only the hot dog, we're gonna be at the show. So
No, you don't get paid to go on. These guys want to know how much I'm going to pay them for a hot dog. I said $2. Trying to set a new standard to be that place where you don't always hear the same droning, left or right. This is a place where all the middle can meet. And today we got the real deal, Mike Lindell, the inventor, not the founder, the inventor of My Pillow. Mike,
John, great to be here.
Thank you for giving us a few minutes. Thank you for being an inspiration to millions of entrepreneurs out there.
Incredible businessman, incredible inventor with a remarkable story.
And recently Nike came out and they made Colin Kaepernick the face of their 30-year anniversary campaign. This is a guy who wears pigs on his socks. Talk about cops. My dad was a proud NYPD officer for 20 years. Okay, so I'm sensitive to blue lives, and I'm sensitive to all lives. But this guy wore pigs on his socks. This guy started protesting by kneeling during the anthem, and then Nike and Phil Knight make a philosophical decision. Let's piss off everyone on the right and go with the guy who kneels for the anthem.
Right.
And a lot of people, I give him credit for taking a stance, fine. I think it was a bad business move.
Right.
But a lot of business guys shy away from that because you don't want to taint your audience, right? And you recently have not shied away from that.
Well, I went all in when I was never into politics. I didn't know anything about him, and Mr. Trump, our president, reached out to me in 2016, the summer of 2016, for a private meeting, and he wanted to talk to me about everything made here in America, my employees, how everything he was going to do as our president. And I walked out there and I said, I'm all in. I mean, I went all in and I didn't look back. And I'll tell you, people ask me all the time, anybody out there, they say, what's your best day ever, Mike? Yesterday. Tomorrow will be today. And I mean, I don't, people can't take away that I met him. I know where his heart is.
The guy's the best.
And he's the best. And it's not, anybody that's in business out there that's afraid of that, don't be afraid. I mean, I get attacked all the time on by bots and trolls on Twitter and Facebook. Usually if Sean Hannity or Laura, back then they'll say, oh, boycott him, and they'll put me. Now they put on Twitter, they go, don't boycott Mike Lindell, he'll just double his ads.
Based on my characterization, would you say that you're a purple person?
Absolutely. I am as purple as it gets. I back the president 100%, and that's common sense. I call it the common sense purple.
That's right.
That's the common sense purple. That's our group, and that group is growing both ends outward. We're all together here, and we aren't leaving here, and we're just going out, and people are jumping on board. I said it before, I'll say it again. I said it the other day. Everybody loves our president. They just don't know it yet.
That's right. So, can you give our audience the crypto for dummies? Because so many people are saying, what is this?
Again, we've got to be careful. Keep the crypto out of the blockchain.
Got it.
Blockchain is the first technology that allows companies to share information in a secure way.
To me, when I try to break it down for dummies, I say this is a record of a transaction that's being created on the blockchain.
And once it's there, it's always there. We never remove them. We may add another transaction to the end, but the blockchain will have every transaction from the beginning till the end.
So we're in an underground bunker in one of the oldest vaults on Wall Street. And this is basically, these safe deposit boxes that are on the wall. This was the original custody.
Correct, precisely.
Proof of ownership went in a box in the wall,
and
you had the key and the bank had the key.
You got it.
So we're kind of right now at the mecca of original proof of ownership.
It's a great example where you have a key and other people have a key in this new world.
And that's it.
And that's
right?
it.
He knows what's the deal. Watch it again, rewind it, DVR it, but cryptocurrency is here and blockchain, the underlying technology, is here to stay.
We're here with Dan Viola. Dan's actually the founder of Blockchain Shift here, and he's a partner in the law firm based in New York City of Sadis and Goldberg. Give us a snapshot of who's here.
Sure. I mean, we have everybody from some crypto investors. We have family office investors who are interested in learning more about the technology to invest in the technology. We have service providers, everything from lawyers to accountants that are servicing groups, both operating companies into the blockchain and also funds that are investing into the blockchain. And we're fortunate to have IBM, as I said before, as a sponsor. They're here and they're developing a lot of interaction with individuals who are excited about learning about how blockchain can impact their lives.
If you had a crystal ball, where do you see things 10 years, 15 years from now, 20 years from now?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think that, I see the analogy of the internet in the 90s a lot to blockchain today. It's still in a very nascent form. And what I say, it's too big to ignore. It's too big to ignore because blockchain will revolutionize your industry if you're in one that is looking at this. And there are a lot of committees already in different banking institutions that are formed blockchain groups to really evaluate and test how to make their business more efficient. So if you hear about blockchain, it's worth your while to sort of really understand how it's going to apply to your specific business.
we have congressmen, we have lawyers, we have investors, we have entrepreneurs, we have coin men, we have token men, we have it all. But right now we have in the token tank Greg Magershak. And Greg, your company Intercoin is doing some really innovative things. Can you tell our audience a little bit about Intercoin and what you guys are doing for security tokens and communities?
Absolutely. So I got into the crypto space in order to help communities have their own currency. We started about a year ago. We're combining the best ideas from the last 4 years to make a scalable currency that will actually be used to power payments in the real world, because that's what Bitcoin was supposed to do. And we feel that it's not scalable enough. So we'd like to have something that is scalable, and each community can have its own currency.
If I'm hearing this right, I live in Staten Island, New York, and if I decide I want to go to some merchants in my community and say, hey, let's do a Staten Island coin, right? People can buy the coins, right? And we get merchants to participate, right?
That's right.
And then there's some incentive.
There's an incentive for each
You
party.
get some kind of discount or something
Exactly.
by spending those coins with your local merchants. Is that close?
That's very close.
Mr. Magershak, thank you for educating our audience, which we're trying to do every day. Under Trump's new tax policies, next year a lot of people are not going to itemize their tax returns, and the incentive to give to charities is going to start to go away. And one of the things that blockchain and entrepreneurs are trying to figure out, like you, is how do we incentivize people to still give?
Yeah, that's right. No,
Tell us a
you're
little more
completely
about
right.
lottery.com.
No, I appreciate that. So, I think the gist of it is because of the new tax reforms, starting next year, it's just not going to make sense for millions of Americans to itemize their taxes. They'll just take the standard deduction. And if you do that, you cannot, if you don't itemize, you cannot write off your charitable giving.
Right.
And so, the purpose why that incentive was created was to make people give. And so, starting next year, the behavior will start to change. If that carrot was the tax deduction, we just have to replace that with something to give people a reason to give. And so the way we do that is that if you make a donation, we want to give you a sweepstakes entry. And now that can be a large cash prize. It could be 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, whatever it is. Or it can be an experience.
But what we're doing, which is super exciting, is we're starting a global impact raffle and sweepstakes platform where any qualified NGO and charity can actually raise money through our platform.
90% of the world's giving comes from Americans. And that's not just the epically wealthy. That is just regular people who give $1 to their church, $5 to the local diabetes organization, or $3 to the red nose thing at the Duane Reade that we have to deal with every single year. I don't think that Americans are going to stop giving regardless of this. And we may see a small dip. Maybe we'll go down to 85, 88. But we are the most generous people in the world. And we know that the people of lower incomes tend to give more percentage-wise of their income than the wealthy, and I don't think that's going to change because Americans' hearts are not going to change because our tax code.
And Joe's going through. We got Mike Lindell, we got Mike Gallagher, we got Jeannie Dano, and he's saying a little bit about each of them, and he goes, and we got Johnny Tobacco. We have no idea what we're going to be talking about Johnny Tobacco, but he's always got some deal for us.
Pink today, what does that mean the topic is?
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and pink represents that. Thanks, Becky. Excellent. MJ is a Republican, never Trumper.
Yes.
Known well here in New York City as a very rebellious city council candidate. And of course, my intrepid executive producer, reporter, writer, everything, Frankie Morano joins us as usual.
Good morning, John. Oh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I tell you, you're anti-NFL after the Packers failed to cover the spread last weekend. I am $110 richer thanks to my football pool. So I am very pro-NFL right now.
Okay, well, you can be pro-NFL on the morning after. But on Sundays at 1, you're right here on What's the Deal. Is $110 billion to the U.S. economy a blip?
First of all, I really agree with what MJ was saying, both about the fact that there is an unlimited well for weapons contracts and also about the importance of protecting journalists. But I think that this has also exposed a larger problem with this uncomfortable relationship the United States has with Saudi Arabia. Donald Trump wrote in his 2015 book, Time to Get Tough, that Saudi Arabia was the world's biggest funder of terrorism. The Obama administration essentially said something very comparable with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. There was a time that we were tethered to Saudi Arabia because of our dependence on Middle East oil. Because of fracking, now America is largely energy independent. We don't need to be beholden to Saudi Arabia anymore. But the problem is that the ultra wealthy, both Democrats and Republicans in the United States, want to feed at the trough of the Saudi royal family. And so we maintain this really unconscionable relationship with a country that either sponsors or enables terrorism, that commits horrendous human rights abuses. Recently, a person was crucified in Riyadh by the Saudi government, and it just becomes it's unconscionable for us to do business with Saudi Arabia and to just look the other way about everything they do.
Understood. Valid point.
I have a difficult time disagreeing with either of them on what they said. You talk about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is an international bad actor, among the worst on the globe, right? So not only do they do things like this all the time to people in their own country, it's a country that executes people for sorcery, right? If you want to know what ISIS would look like if it was a country, it would look exactly like Saudi Arabia. Women could not drive there until 6 months ago.
We had a spirited discussion in our last segment on Saudi Arabia and the alleged killing, and MJ was quite upset with me for using the word alleged, but that's where it stands today. And allegedly, by most pundits and experts, Amazon is quickly becoming a global behemoth. And left and right, mom and pop stores are either getting on the digital train and selling through Amazon, or brick and mortar is slowly going the way of the steam engine. And, I think Amazon's reach at this point is way too big. And just, last year, Toys R Us was gone. That's an American staple. Every kid wants to go to Toys R Us right before Christmas and point to things that Santa will bring them. And now, you got to go on Amazon, I guess, and point to things. And kids are doing home shopping at 5, I guess. And now, just this week, it's announced that Eddie Lampert is put Sears into bankruptcy. And, that's another stalwart of Americana, Sears. These things are going by the wayside. What are your thoughts, guys, MJ, on Amazon and what it's doing to the traditional economy?
Well, I think the Sears story in and of itself is an important lesson for Amazon, too. You just made an excellent point. Amazon's reach is huge. It's epic. We've never seen anything like that. But even the greats fall, and we know this. Nothing lasts forever. Relationships don't last forever. Sears don't last forever. Amazon may not last forever. I often wonder how, being a Prime member, they're able to ship me things completely for free within 24 hours, no matter what I want anywhere in the world. There is a caveat somewhere, and we just haven't found it yet, or Jeff Bezos hasn't hit that yet. But growth does have, an end point. You can't just grow forever.
Amazon is nearing $1 trillion, trading about $910 billion in market cap, so they're bigger than most countries.
But the problem with Amazon, right, is if you paid $1 in taxes last year, you paid more to the Uncle Sam than Amazon did in all of 2017.
That's
they
right.
paid 0 in taxes
That's
last
right.
year. Now, I don't blame Amazon for trying to reduce its tax liability. I blame the writers of the tax code for allowing all these loopholes for a company like Amazon.
We are at the Blockchain Shift Conference in the Manor Wynwood Convention Center in Miami. And we're lucky enough today to get a few minutes with Dan Nissenhoff. Dan, thanks for joining us here on What's the Deal? You are the CEO and founder of the Crown League, which is a fantasy sports gaming company. I know a little bit about it, but why don't you tell our audience a little bit about Crown League and what you guys are up to?
Sure. So the Crown League is the first professional fantasy football league in the country. It'll be run by professionals, owned by the public, and run entirely on the blockchain. So what does that mean? We're essentially institutionalizing professional fantasy football in the same way that esports institutionalized professional video gaming. And we're building a national league. We're hiring GMs for each team, experts in the space, names you'll recognize out of the NFL, out of fantasy, out of sports media. The franchises will be located in key geographic regions in the U.S., staffed by high-profile GMs and a front office. You'll be able to buy a stake in a team, own a piece of a real national professional fantasy football team.
Wow. So you guys are doing a security token offering?
We're doing 13 of them. So
13,
each team,
one for each team.
Each team is a legal entity. Its equity is represented by a security token. So instead of buying a share of stock, you're buying a securitized token that gives you the same rights.
So the place where fantasy meets blockchain is that they create this interleague currency that people can say, well, I don't want to own the New York Giants anymore because they're horrible. I'll lose a few bucks and I'm going to buy a piece of,
move to Jersey.
Cleveland Browns or something like that. So it's kind of on that concept. I thought it was a pretty good idea, and I'm not a big fantasy person, but and our camera guy over here, he's probably got the most insights on this stuff. Hold on, come down here. Let me hold the camera.
Fantasy gambler.
And, let me hold the camera for a minute.
What's up?
Yeah, let me hold. No, go sit in my seat because you seem to be more of an expert than me.
In crypto?
Yeah. Now that we have a true expert, a fantasy expert in his seat, cameraman Rob is going to give us the real breakdown if this is a deal or no deal.
I think it's a no deal because what makes other people not want to make their own coin for the same purpose? Yeah. There's a lot of fantasy leagues that already break it down with their own price points, and I don't see why someone would, because then there'd be like an NFL that's like the real NFL, and then there'd be a fictitious NFL, and then which one do you
well
root
also
for more?
there's no limit to how many fictitious NFLs,
exactly,
right?
so
So
that's the
where's
point.
the supply demand?
And it seems like this focus of this coin is to make one, and really monopolize that fantasy market, and I don't think that's going to
As a millennial crypto buyer, are you interested in investing in the Crown League coin?
I am not. I'm only interested in the top 15 coins.
All right, now that you know what you need to know about everything you need to know, we'll tell you what you need to know next on What's the Deal.
Yes, we got cameras.
That's right.
Cameras on cameras.
There's the camera coin. Camera coin.
Hey, it's John Tobacco. You're watching What's the Deal on Newsmax TV. We're on location tonight in my hometown, Staten Island. We're lucky enough to get a few minutes with Steve Bannon.
Hey,
Steve,
brother.
thank you for coming to Staten Island. Thank you for still
I
carrying the message.
love Staten Island.
Man needs no introduction. Chief White House strategist for Donald Trump, former executive chairman of Breitbart, and now Citizens for
American Republic, right? A C4, yep.
Your C4 entity that you put together to keep telling people that we need to still fight for the Trump message.
It's the Trump program. Basically, it's the populist, economic, nationalist message of Trump. Heritage, the conservative movement has all these great institutions. I felt like the Trump movement and Trump's populism, his economic nationalism, needed a home. So we're both an idea generator, we do communications and kind of grassroots organizing. So it's basically to do things like saw tonight, make films and get them out to the deplorables.
Raise the awareness,
yes.
remind people.
Yes. What we're fighting for.
Steve, a lot of people have called you the architect, this, that. I always say you're like the cardiologist because you figured where the pulse was. You put your finger on the pulse of America.
I'm going to steal that one.
Yeah, you can. I always say you like the cardiologist because you put your finger right on the pulse and said, hey, here are the people that are forgotten. These are the forgotten people. And now you got people like Maxine Waters going on national television saying, we, the Trump supporters, not Donald Trump, but we, the Trump supporters, are scumbags.
Well, this is in the film, this movie, Trump at War, there's a 5-minute prologue before actually the film starts. It's like an opera, right? You get all the themes in there. What I did, because I saw this and it upset me, so what we did is went back and we picked a couple of folks like Chris Matthews, but principally Don Lemon. Because Don, whether you like him or not, he's lecturing you every night. Yeah. And here's what he's lecturing on. He's not saying it's Donald Trump's a racist. He's saying you're racist. You're a racist. And so what I did is went back and cut all the footage that you've seen from these news organizations of the violence done, and you guys know because you were attacked, of the violence done to folks wearing red hats. And that's why, and if we put this in theaters, I think it would be NC-17 for violence and language. So his first 5 minutes are over the top. Brutal.
But you
that's
need it. What's happening in the upcoming election? What does it mean for the future of our country? And what does it mean for the next 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency? Let's ask our expert panel. Nan, let's go to the ladies first model.
I was thinking about the geography of the state of New York, the geology of the state of New York. In the Hudson Valley, which I was privileged to represent in Congress, we are underlain by a lot of slip faults. Just small breaks in the crust where movement occurs, sometimes almost undetectably. Eventually, all of that can add up to a fairly major shift. And I think one of the reasons the experts have had so much trouble, the career folks have had so much trouble predicting accurately what the electorate's going to do, is because there are so many ways in which constituencies are shifting. As we know, President Trump created a whole new electorate, essentially. It was not an orthodox Republican electorate from the standpoint of fiscal policy and trade, right?
Absolutely. And
more
Rob,
populist.
we met with Steve Bannon last night at an airing of his documentary. And I said, more than an architect, you were kind of the cardiologist, because you put your finger on where those changing peoples were. And Rob, you think Trump figured out a way to tap into those people that are on those fault lines, like deciding red, blue, red, blue, red, blue?
We're always wondering about what's the approval rating. That's not as important as this maybe 15 to 20%, maybe as low as 12% of the people out there that can actually win an election for somebody. Plus, I've been writing for months now that there's not going to be a blue wave. It may be a blue mist if we're lucky, because we don't have boots on the ground journalists anymore. I will toot my own horn. I talk to people. I talk to them in the subway when we're stuck between stops, which happens constantly. Bill de Blasio and Andrew Cuomo. And I talk to them on the bus. I talk to them in the post office. And in supermarkets is a great place. And you get the pulse of what people think and what's important to them. And Democrats have missed the boat.
If the Democrats take the House, Donald Trump, who is brilliant at casting villains, has the perfect villain for 2 years. For anything that goes wrong. Let's say there's an economic recession, he has a perfect poster child.
That's the worst thing you can give him.
Exactly. Can you
excuse.
imagine Nancy Pelosi as his punching bag for 2 years?
Oh my God,
Because he can blame any lack of progress on the Democratic majority in the House.
Maybe he'll come up with a group nickname for the horrible House has ruined us.
Yeah, the
House. He can do better than
How about
that.
the House of Horrors?
The
House of Horrors. Yeah.
Give me time. I'm sure Trump is the master of nicknames.
The haunted
Far
house.
better than I.
Haunted House.
The haunted house.
That's
Yeah.
good.
What's up, Rob? Why are you in a suit today? So I came in my best I could John Tobacco suit with my John Tobacco socks right here. You see that?
Welcome back. You're watching continuing coverage of the Newsmax TV alternative NFL programming. This is where all voices can be heard, and we answer the age-old question on a variety of politics, business, economy, and where they all intersect.
Well, again, like you said, I'm kind of an oxymoron. I'm a conservative artist in New York City. Look, you look at Hollywood, if they find out that you're a Republican in the acting world, you don't get the part. You're the stock boy in the X-Lax commercial in the back of the scene,
Of course.
New York City, where are you going to make it? In the art world. So I go there. What do I see? I see all of these creative people. The creative people who should be the most patriotic, because we get to test the boundaries of that First Amendment.
That's right.
Like nobody else.
That's
more than
right.
you,
That's
more than
right.
Frank, more than a policeman. And they were stepping on the flag and calling on military baby kill. And I couldn't understand that. It could not get through my head.
And if a woman, it seems lately, feels the slightest thing or remembers it from 20 years ago or 30 years ago, that guy is under indictment by the court of public opinion, and he's guilty until proven innocent.
You know what it does? It destroys the real Me Too movement.
True.
It's the same thing
Agreed.
with the word, and no one talks about this, the word racism. Okay? Racism is one of our historic, most important words. It's an ugly word, but it's part of our history. It's real. And it was really real back then. And when every day I'm called a racist, you're called a racist because I voted for Trump or because that you're killing that word.
This book has a lot of political humor in it, but it is a kid's book. It's a simple story about a caveman named Donald who drains the swamp. He goes up against the big swamp creatures. The biggest, baddest swamp creature is a dinosaur called the Georgosaurus. Some adults may find that funny.
Right.
One of the reasons that I want to promote this book, okay, is because Stephen Colbert has a quote-unquote kids book out there, okay? It's nasty, anti-Trump political humor. It is not a kids book, but it looks like a kids book.
As far as I'm concerned, I used to think Stephen Colbert was a great talent.
Yeah, we
when
all
I used
did.
to watch him on the Daily Show, and he used to play this character, and it was really clever. Even though I didn't agree with the subject, the political views, I agreed and understood their creativity and the way they were using satire to kind of get their point across.
It's shameful and it's un-American. It is American to disagree. It is American to say, this president, I'm not his biggest fan. Here's where I differ. That's American.
On the left, in the mainstream media, they're saying that women have now gone against Trump. You hear this over and over again. Those school moms, those suburban moms, they're fed up with him. They're fed up with his Twitter. I run into women across the country who are like, I think he's doing great.
Well,
what are your women in your organization
I am one of those suburban moms. I live in the suburbs of Atlanta, and I will tell you that it's not true. They said the same thing during the election when, they're parading all these women out and accusing them of this, that, and the other. And what women care about are the economy, national security. They want to know that they can take care of their families, that they can put food on their table, send their kids to college, and provide for their families. That's what they care about.
I have a real question about this, and I don't think there's anybody more appropriate to ask this to a woman who's heading up Women for Trump. How do you deal with the misogyny? How do you deal with the ugly speech directed towards women in particular?
It's a question I'm asked every day.
Okay,
Numerous times a day. You know what? What matters is his actions. My husband says things that I don't agree with.
Is that okay?
I'm not excusing anything. You're talking
Well, it
about
seems like you are.
no, I'm not excusing anything. But what is more important to me?
That's a
Something
pivot.
that was
That's a pivot.
no.
How do you
it's
deal
not,
with the
because-
misogyny? How do you deal with
Listen,
it?
can I finish my answer?
Absolutely.
What do I care about? I care about the economy, national security, my family. Those are the things that I care about. What he said in a private situation years ago, of course there are things I don't agree with that he said. Like I said, there are things that I don't agree with that my husband said. But at the same time, did you expect me to vote for Hillary Clinton just because I'm a woman? Because let me tell you something.
So,
it is
I'm
an
sorry.
insult to
I'm
my
just
intelligence.
trying to follow along.
That's more misogynist
I'm
than
just trying to follow
some locker room
It's an
talk.
insult to my intelligence that I'm going to vote for somebody just because she has the best
So
same
you're saying
body
that
parts.
You can vote 10 days in advance. You can vote by mail. It's nonsense to say that people can't vote if they don't want to.
You ever
And
heard
then
of
on the
literacy
point,
tests?
and then
What
are
do
you
you
saying we
think?
have literacy? What we should have is a voter ID, because while you say voter fraud is non-existent, that's not true.
What's the problem with having ID? You can't, you need ID for everything you do in life, even to go to a library and take out a book. And we're saying, this is prejudicial because you're asking the people who have IDs?
You heard from the best of them. Newsmax just lets me sit here and ask the questions. Their commentary is a lot better than mine. We got to take a quick break. We're coming back right after this. You better watch the commercials, because without the commercials, this show is not going to be on, so stay tuned.
Yeah, that's what I do. You didn't Joe, you didn't tell him that?
No, I don't.
I swear to you, Joe. He This was saw just anybody. here. Gun, He knife, was- bat, he was home just- invasion, car hijacking. Thanks, Joe, I got more movies than you.
I'm convinced the class is just to learn how to say all those things you can do really
Yeah,
fast.
right. Say it
and
really
then
fast so it
everyone believes
sounds
you.
like
It's like,
it.
well, he
So
must be able to
smooth,
do
yeah,
it.
so Welcome back. You are tuned in, if you are not aware of it already, to the newest show on Newsmax TV, What's the Deal? And we answer the question on many topics, what is the deal? We also want to keep the dialogue fresh by having a dialogue that's fun. And now, to keep it super fun, we have April Brucker with us tonight. April, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'll give you, I don't like a left hand shake, but I have a feeling your right hand is occupied.
Would you like to see what's on my right hand?
Oh, baby, would I.
But before I do that, I want to tell you
Tell me.
that I'm no longer looking for Mr. Right. I'm just desperately seeking Mr. Okay. He's not Mr. Right. He's not Mr. Left. He's not even Mr. Okay. He's Mr. Donald J. Trump, 45th President of the Uninformed States of America. Hello, this is huge. Thank you. I'm the other dummy in the White House. Yes, this is huge.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful introduction of Donald J. Trump.
Thank you.
What was your inspiration to create a character dummy that looks somewhat like Donald Trump? What made you do this?
Well, the thing is that Donald Trump is the ventriloquist puppet of the Republican Party. He says all the obnoxious things that the Republican politicians want to say but can't. They're too polished. And he says them like a ventriloquist puppet. And I called him Tramp instead of Trump for two reasons. One, Donald Trump's a character. And two, the actual guy has a lot of harmful policies that want to hurt people, and so a tramp's harmless, and everybody can laugh at a tramp.
So let me ask you a serious question while you have a silly ventriloquist dummy out in my political talk show. Who do you think has their hand up the back of Donald Trump? When you say he's a dummy, he's a ventriloquist dummy at a Republican Party, who's actually doing this?
Who do I think has my hand up his back? I think it's Mike Pence.
You think Mike Pence is actually running?
Oh yeah,
and Donald Trump is letting Mike Pence.
Fake news.
Do you actually not move your lips when you do it? Can we zoom in on that, Stevie? Can we see?
So do I move my lips? She moves her lips, but I'm not telling you what she said. Oh, you can't say that on TV. Come on, that joke's gonna be huge.
You know,
I know what you're thinking, hey girl. What am I thinking? Absolutely nothing. Oh.
You feel like he's made an impact on the political debate?
I do, actually. He served as credentialed press at the debates in Las Vegas, and people spoke to him.
Really?
He had credentials. Yeah, and we've met a lot of people, we've spoke to a lot of people, and he adds levity to the situation, and I think levity creates the open dialogue that you're shooting for.
You're right. And even if we don't agree with the views, we want to have people have a dialogue. And that's why we call it What's the Deal? Because we bring you the real deal. And I'm not happy with the tone of Donald's hair because his hair is much lighter than that.
Hey, what can I say? This is what happens when you vote against LGBTQ people.
I'm not happy with his skin tone because he's much tanner than that.
Yeah, what do you say about that, Mr. Tramp? You're much toner than that. You're much tanner. Well, what can I say? I haven't had sex with my carrot mistress in a while. I didn't want to know that, Mr. Tramp, and that's a really bad joke. Well, you wrote it, April. You're a liberal snowflake. Stop calling me a liberal snowflake. You called yourself a liberal snowflake. Oh.
You know what? If you can't beat him, laugh at him. Can we do a fist bump, me and you?
Yes, because it's huge.
No, but I want it with you. Okay. On What's the Deal, all views are welcome. We talk about all topics, and we talk with all kinds of people. And April Brucker is completely on the other side of the world from me and probably most people on Earth. But she's a wonderful person. You're a fantastic entertainer, and I want to thank you for joining us tonight.
And thank you for having me.
Give me that left hand again. You're a doll.